work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go.
Forward.
Hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go.
Forward.
Hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go.
Forward.
Hard work, hard work, hard work.
Fall in.
My fault. My fault. What's good? What's good? What's good? What's going on? It's a Friday. Y'all know what it is. First Formation Morning Sports. So come on and fall in with your favorite veteran next as we get to talking about what's been cracking, what's happening in sports for the most part. So, of course, you just seen Philadelphia Eagles and Minnesota Vikings last night, but that's not what the conversation is. First and foremost, starting off when you get to talking about engaging, let's talk about what's been going on in NBA. Let me make sure I'm able to have my references. So, of course, actually, they're right in front of me. So, of course, if you've been in a rock or if you haven't been engaging, the NBA has now came up with a policy. What's good, TT? What's going on? Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Friday, yes, indeed. So the week is upon us. Y'all getting ready to turn up for the week, but of course, y'all in the right place. Start off with the right time, right here. So as I was saying, the NBA is now starting implementing a policy to where they are mandating and enforcing their teams to hold their players accountable. So, who would have thought in a world where these individuals, particular individuals, earn so much bread in which they decide, hey, I want to sit out the game in which I love and get paid a handsome amount of money to play it, and they sit out. Of course, we know they're just like all human beings in which they get tired. They have reasons to need to sit out, circumstances, all that type of stuff, in which the teams decide and relegate that and be like, you know what? Go ahead, chill for a second, take a day off. In which now the NBA, as well as the Players Association, has decided to come up with the policy because they said who's starting to be left out in this decision making are the fans. The fans that not all the fans are able to pay for courtside seats. Some have to pay for nosebleed seats with the hopes of maybe getting a break and maybe getting asked to come down. But in any case, they are the ones missing out. They pay these dollars to see these players that come to these towns and cities, and then those players are sitting out. So now the NBA has put together a plan to where now teams get fined for sitting their all-stars for I guess you could say verified and approved reasons. So of course the fine can range anywhere from I think it's 250,000 or 225,000 up to $1 million for habitual line steppers and continual offenses. And of course, it is broken down in so many different ways to where in state, the first thing you have to take into consideration is they have to break down what is considered an all-star. So what an all-star is considered is a player who has made the all-star game or the or a part of the NBA all NBA team the previous 3 years, the previous 3 seasons. So of course, each time you come up with a new season, there's a new opportunity for someone who may have been on that all-star roster previously may not be on it that year, to where it makes a difference. If a team has more than one all-star, then they cannot rest those two all-stars at the same time. Of course, there has to be circumstances. There have to be memos put forth if they want to play, if they want to rest players. Matter of fact, I don't want to paraphrase it. 1 second. I want to make sure that y'all get this all, so there's no reason to be. But in-state is, I mean, on the surface, is not a bad idea, I guess, when you look at it. In retrospect, but it does really come into a place to where you start to wonder, like, is this really what it has come to? And obviously, this is what it really has come to. Basically, it's called the Players Participation Policy. In his efforts is to continue to. I'm sorry. The efforts are to return and bring back the principle of what the 82 game is. So, of course, we know the NBA season, 82 games long. I don't know when's the last time we could say we had who. I don't even know if we can say who is the Iron Man player in the NBA currently at this point anyway. But basically, that's what the 82 game, it wants to bring back the principles of the 82 game season, which is the regular season for the most part. So basically, as I was saying, the NBA, as this is a direct quote from the ESPN.com, the NBA is defining the star player. Star player is the key word. NBA is defining the star player as a player that's someone who has made the All-Star game and the All NBA teams in any of the 3 previous seasons. So that's basically two. That's basically 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. Oh well, correction. 7 teams that potentially that they could have made. 8 teams. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. One of the 2 All-Star games teams, as well as one of the 6 All NBA teams, being first, second, or third team they can make. In total, 25 teams and 50 players would have been a violation of this policy last year. If this policy was in place last year, 15 teams fall into the category of having 2 all-stars and wouldn't have been able to sit them. So basically, it comes down to the league memo changes and describes certain areas in the policy, which means teams must manage their roster to ensure that no more than 1 star is unavailable for the same game. Teams must ensure that the star players are available for nationally televised in-season tournaments. As we know, the NBA just came up with the in-season tournament, so they have to be available, or one has to be for that. Teams must refrain from any long-term shutdowns or near shutdowns of said star player participating in games or plays in materially reduced role of circumstances affecting the integrity of the game. So in case that's like shutting down players that aren't that's like shutting down players who were available but just didn't play, i.e. Damian Lillard last year, Brady Bill last year. So these type of players would have been in violation of this policy last year. Additionally, teams must maintain a balance between the number of 1 game absences for a star in home games and road games. Of course, the preference is that absence come during a road game. A home game, due to the fact of which is interesting because yes, you can that player may miss a home game, but if there's no true stars that's on the other team, it's not going to be effective. But of course, the home game be the game that they want to do, and they want to have these stars play in the away games because those fans are playing not to see just their players, but the stars that come to play against as well. And lastly, of course, the teams must ensure that healthy players resting for a game are present and visible to fans. I guess little victories in the end state. Additionally, of course, there are some provisions to this rule as its differences as players that hit the age of 35 at the beginning of the season uh, will have some designated allowances. Basically, of course, if they have a career workload or over 35,000 regular season minutes or 1,000 regular season and playoff games accumulated in the entirety, they have certain exemptions as well as the team being able to declare if the player is eligible or able to play back-to-back games or is eligible based on which the team will have the reference. Additionally, to eliminate the whole the age and the minutes and the games played, it could just be players that have a specific and unusual injury or reason to why they can't play back to backs be due to this injury that's historically in their record. Then they can put up the declaration for this player to not be able to play back to back, in which they will be expected not to play the latter part of the back to back at the discretion of the organization. So, of course, all they got to do is put it in writing a week prior to said game, so it's understood. So a lot of stuff in place. It's going to seem tedious in my opinion. It sounds like it's going to be extremely tedious and coming. I'm very sure, just like anything else, people find a way to circumvent and get around, find a loophole and get away, or find a way to, I guess you could say, instead get over. But we'll see how it ends up going and how it comes about going forth. The NBA is trying to do its best to, as he said, give it back to the fans, to where the fans can continue to enjoy. Well, we'll see. Other news, right? Of course, it's sad to say, of course, but if you've been watching and paying attention in the news, of course, Houston guard Kevin Porter Jr., of course, arrested earlier this week for a domestic violence against his girlfriend, who was a former WNBA player, in which it stated that Porter um, basically hit his girlfriend with a closed fist multiple times in the face, actually fracturing her vertebra in her neck and giving her a cut above her eye. Of course, it was said that the assault didn't stop until she was able to get loose and run out into the hallway, in which she was found all bloodied up. Of course, when you look at it, what happens is you have plenty of situations in this case, when it comes down to Kevin Porter, to where he has noticeably shown propensity to be angry and violent. In this case, it came out in the form of domestic violence when playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers, which were the team that drafted him before he was traded to Houston 2 months after the fact. Kevin Porter Jr. was involved in he was in a single car accident in which it was discovered that he was in possession of a loaded semi-automatic weapon. He's had other run-ins. Of course, when he got to Houston, he had the situation where he was got into a altercation or a verbal altercation discussion that got kind of heated with him and his head coach, in which he had to be sat down. So Kevin Porter Jr. has showed that he potentially has some issues, whether it's anger issues or issues with authority or whatever the case may be. He has some type of issues. Now what we have to basically look at is what is it the NBA is going to do, of course, with this domestic violence situation, as we can take in consideration the situation they had with when the player from Charlotte, the Bridges. had the situation with him in Los Angeles, of which he basically lost out on the whole season and had to get reinstated. Now he's back playing. Now we have the situation, similar situation happened with Kevin Porter Jr., where now we have to take into consideration what is there to do now, because you're starting to have these situations. Understand they're human, saying their emotions, and some people just have some situation they have to take care of. We just still fresh from the John Morant issue that has carried from last year. Now we're carrying this year because now he's going to be without. He's going to be suspended, of course. So we have that. So what is the NBA can do? Is there anything the NBA can do in reference to these issues, or when it comes to domestic violence? Maybe some broaches in some way, form, or fashion into mental health issues, possibly. No one wants to sit up and say like mental health is within all ramifications in all areas every time we come up and see there's a problem, but there's a problem. And I wonder what is there to be done to be able to help this young man get past what he has going on. Moving a little bit, sliding to the left, as we get ready to approach into the pigskin. Excuse me. College football, it is starting to go down in the NCAA and their football ranks. As we already know, the rankings came out last week, and yet we have a plethora of teams that are still fully engaged and ready to go in. Last night, you had Miami played against Bethune-Cookman, and we know that wasn't the best of games in which Miami was able to get the W. I think it was a blow. I know it was a blowout, 48-7 last night. 22 ranked Miami put a shellacking on Bethune-Cookman. Of course, the game's coming up this week. Number 3, Florida State takes on Boston College. We can expect what that was going to be. Number 7, Penn State faces off against Illinois. Number 14, LSU Bayou Bengals lock it up with Mississippi State. The 15th ranked Kansas State and Wildcats faces off with Missouri. That's the battle of undefeated. Someone's going to walk away with an L in their first loss of the season. The 12th ranked Utah Utes will take on Weber State. Central Michigan will put its Notre Dame will put its 3-0 record up against Central Michigan as they face off. Number 1, Georgia has a test in its own versus South Carolina. Can Rattler cause an upset, shake it up to where now we have to look at Georgia as a mere mortal as South Carolina and Georgia face off? Number 1 on the line. The 10th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide will be doing battle against South Florida. I guess there's no better way to get over an upset than to play somebody that is inferior to you. Presumably, both teams 1-1, so someone will come away with a losing record. The 16th ranked Oregon State Beavers will be matching up with the San Diego State Aztecs. Number 19, Oklahoma will face off against Tulsa. Number 20, North Carolina will be taking on Minnesota. Wait, that don't look right. But in case that does look right. That's correct. Number 20, North Carolina versus Minnesota. Number 21, Duke versus Northwestern. The 25th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes against Western Michigan. The 6th ranked Ohio State Buckeyes versus Western Kentucky. The 23rd ranked Washington State Cougars versus North Colorado. The 8th ranked Washington Huskies against Michigan State, in which that brings you to a quick point. Michigan State is embroiled in their own situation as their coach, Mel Tucker, has been accused or been named in a case of sexual harassment. If we take a look back at the Michigan State and the situations which they have been embroiled in a lot of things, from the sexual assault, as Nassar there, who was a part of the USA Medical Olympic team at Michigan, was found guilty of sexually assaulting those women, in which he is currently serving time in prison for it. Of course, we have the situation with Mike D'Antoni, who had to step, not D'Antoni, I forgot their head coach for basketball. He was in a situation. Now here we go with Michigan State. Now in this in another situation, yet again another situation. But Coach Mel Tucker is basically declaring that he is not innocent of what he's accused of. He stated that it was a mutual relationship between consenting adults, in which it was a lot of things that was put out there, as far as passes being made, invites that were made, and now is being said that it wasn't a part of the that was not a part of the situation. Photos being sent, just a plethora of things if you were to go back and look at it, in which he's saying that happened, but which are not being reciprocated or being stated that was the case at the same time. It's starting to getting a little etchy. So what's going on is basically he's about to go through a hearing, which he feels like is not going to be predicated on proving his innocence in the fact of the matter, or him being able to present evidence that he is not guilty of anything in which he is charged, and that basically that all these things in which he's being charged of were consenting amongst adults. In which Miss Tracy, who is the plaintiff in this case, she's stating that that is so far from the truth, and that nothing in which he did was exacted upon as seeing that it was an invite or anything in case of the matter. And take in consideration, Miss Tracy is a sexual assault advocate, and she teaches sexual assault and education, in which that's how she met Coach Tucker, because she was hired to teach it to his team. So this is definitely taking on a whole different turn, I guess you could say, in which now is interesting to see how it all comes out in state, what Michigan State is trying to see if they have justifiable rules. You know what, CC, that you're not lying. They do. They need to basically come up with, or maybe, I'm very sure they do. Sometimes you just don't know, I guess, when it's in-states come out. But it's clear that things are going on Michigan State, in which it continues to see reverberates and comes back year after year after year. Something pops up. So maybe they I'm assuming soon they get it right. But in any case, that's what's going on in Michigan, in which I'm hopeful they can get it all together, of course. And it was unfortunate. Coach Tucker, he turned around a dismal team. They went 10-2 last year. He's currently 24 and I think 10 since he's been at Michigan State. He had just got a 10-year, $95 million contract to be their coach for the future. So if all this comes out to be true, or of course all we know is a reasonable doubt, don't necessarily have to be true, it just needs to be proven to seemingly be true. If all this comes out, he basically can be he voids his contract. Now $95 million down the drain. So I hope everything comes out to where there's something that can be reached. Maybe there's a differences. Sometimes people's perceptions aren't necessarily their realities, and so of course we just have to come down to what's true and how these could be taken care of. So I'm very sure more to follow on that. Additionally, like I said, North Carolina Central will take on UCLA. Who's ranked 24. Tennessee takes on Florida, another hard-fought game, I'm sure. SEC action. Will Tennessee still be number 11 after this game? Will Florida be able to put together something to knock off the team just on the outside of the top 10 in college football? Number 17, Ole Miss against Georgia Tech. Second-rate, Michigan takes on Bowling Green. The fourth-ranked Texas Longhorns will be battling in Wyoming. 13th ranked Oregon against Hawaii. And of course, last but not least, which is of course the next topic, 18th ranked Colorado will be tapped in and facing their rivalry predecessor rivalry in the state rivalry, Colorado on ESPN, which is the place of game day, college game day. So this is what's going to be interesting, right? The Buffaloes will be playing the Rams. And in this, there has already been, I guess you could say, a little mudslinging or whatever case like that. Colorado, Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and company have shocked the college football world, put it on notice. As Deion said when he first got to Boulder, we coming, and I'm bringing, and we packed in. I brung our luggage. We in this Louis. So the Louis pulls up. He unpackaged the Louis. He got all kind of stuff popping out the Louis bag. He got he done set up and out of reconstructed the whole team. 90 new players. 62 of them 90 players came from the transfer portal, and he's constructed what is currently a ranked squad in the first few weeks of college football play. Getting to now what is the 18th ranked with a plethora of ranked opponents on this schedule in state, because seemingly the Pac-12 is dialed in on their swan song and has enacted 8 ranked opponents on the schedule, which of course is going to dwindle a little bit as the season goes, because they have to play one another. But what has happened is there has been a little banter back and forth. Coming from Colorado State, presumably. Coach Jay Norvell, head coach for the Colorado State Rams, came out and had a couple of things to say, as he took, I guess he takes offense or doesn't like how Deion Sanders handles his business, in which he pointed out Deion Sanders or makes allusions to the fact of when he comes up, him being Jay Norvell, when he comes to an interview, he looks grown people in the face, in their eyes. He removes his hat, he removes his sunglasses, and he addresses them. Now we all know Coach Prime has an affinity for wearing his hat, whether it be a beanie, hat, or a fitted, or a boom cap. To his interviews, he wears his shades, his glasses to the interviews, and he speaks to the media. Again, Coach Jay Norvell went on to even further say it is that's what he does because that's what his mom taught him or how his mom raised him, paraphrasing. So, of course, Deion is taking offense to it, or not taking offense to it. He said it's personal now. What's good, Darren? Glad. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You know what? For my birthday last week, you could have gave me a dub. You didn't have to beat me in fantasy. You just edged me out a little bit, but you could have gave me. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. You know I feel young, Miss Jones, Brecca Jones. Yes, ma'am. I feel young. Thank you. Appreciate it. So it's that's basically what it's come out to be. Like, Deion has basically said he's taking the personal. Well, he's not taking the personal. He said Coach Jay Norvell made it personal. And then he went on to even say that, you know what, it feels like he had something to say about my mama, due to the fact that the illusion of how he stated and said, hey, him saying that this is what his mom talking is almost saying like Deion Sanders' mom did not raise him right or didn't provide him with saying, hey, you should do this, which is to line up with that. So now what we have in place is bulletin board material being put out there now. So now, of course, what's going on is the team, or it's so let me backtrack a little. You had a situation when Matt Rule, coach of the Nebraska Panthers, I'm putting his two teams in the mix. He was the former head coach of the Carolina Panthers in the NFL. Now he's the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the college football. what he has done now is what he did is he had some choice words to say in comments in which, of course, the rhetoric is that Colorado is taking receipts, is keeping receipts, in which it was a receipt kept on Coach Rule said some distressing comments about Coach Sanders and his team. So which Shedeur Sanders took it upon himself to point out and let it be known and understood that, hey, we heard you, Coach. So now is the situation where the current coach of the Colorado State or Rams is coming out and he said his things, which now is being said that, okay, we heard you. He's like, you made it personal. You pointed out this, you made it personal. It was a bunch of things in which Coach Deion said. He's like, now you make it personal. And this, what is being personal now, they're going to come out in all guns a blazing. So some things that come in my mind, right, when we're talking about this, like, is that something necessary to? Because it seems like, although I'm sure that isn't what we're looking at it, but I'm very sure it's been used for fuel. Is it necessary, or is it even advantageous for those teams, Coach Prime and company, or Coach Prime and the coaches, to use any of that as a point to trying to build, you know what I'm saying, the emotions of the players and get them to where they're this is what they're going to use to fire them up? Is it a possibility? Okay, I'm very sure it is. Is it possible that these players and these coaches can overplay this hand of it seemed like it's personal and come out with an L in this case? Now, Colorado does not have an affinity for being top ranked teams. They have not played Colorado since 2019, in which they're on the docket this year. But Colorado has only won, I think, one of their last 25 games against a top 25 AP team. That doesn't line up well, especially for what Colorado has been doing. And that's basically been taking names and sorting it out later. So, but again, could this be a possibility to where it could be too much of an emotional game where they might buy into it too much and then potentially come and they and take a L? Remember the last time Deion faced the opponent that had been doing a lot of talking and was a rival or had something, he felt like he had something to prove, was why he was in the ranks while he was coaching in the HBCU ranks, and he got embarrassed and pummeled by that team. I can't remember what team it was. So could it be the same thing? Cornelius, but it's always personal when the people don't understand the culture. Deion is a threat because he's similar to what the players they recruit represent daily. And so you know what, Cornelius, I can get behind that. I can. Well, I'm not gonna say I could get behind that, but I can understand where you're going with that and your meaning behind it. About, you know what I'm saying, Deion. It's like I was having a conversation the other day to where it's almost similar to, you know, how you might have the service member or coach, I mean, a NCO or a leader in the military who is a little more stern, a little more direct, a little more by the book, intends to and does a little more to keep discipline, to be more of a disciplinarian. And then you look at another squad or another leader in his squad, and he's a little bit more similar to that and what soldiers are doing. Not saying that he's not an NCO in any way, form, or fashion, but he's more conducive to what soldiers are doing. Two types of leadership styles to where presumably it's the same. They're going about the same thing. It's just that the leadership styles is different. So, in that being said, is it a they're the same, but of course, like you said, he might be a threat because he's more of what they want there, or what's I was about to say soldiers. He's more of what may be wanted by the players as opposed of anything, or, you know, saying flashy, kind of like outside the box, and they're winning. So I can see how that could be put into terms, and how they could be seen as being something in which they are more so. But I'm very sure. But is that what's causing players? Are players like, let's take a example, make an example. Like Dion has put this on display to where I wonder how many current players in that are out there on teams is looking at jumping in the portal with the possibility of going to play for Coach Prime. I wonder how many top recruits, are currently out there that is looking to want to go play at Colorado due to what Coach Prime is doing. It's a little early, so I'm very sure there's not that list isn't too deep or isn't too big. So it remains to be seen how that's going to come about. How that's going to come about over the course of the season. By the time they get ready to do in people start declaring or saying, letting it be known what school they're going to go to at the end of the as the season, the periods open up. So I don't know. So I guess that actually remains to be seen, CC, if that's what's going to go on, or if saying, if this is just a thing. Is it a trend? Is Coach Prime a trend, or is Coach Prime going to be what is being seen as the real deal amongst the players that's going to continue to help, and where he's going to be? We're going to be talking about Colorado in the Big 12 is a perennial powerhouse, and Coach Prime has completely and utterly turned the culture at Colorado around. Because at this point, I don't foresee. I no longer. I'm going to try to avoid calling him saying he turned their team around, because their team was gone. That team is no longer, the team from 2022-23 is not even existent anymore. It's just a little remnants of that team remaining. And so Coach Prime has basically reconstructed and rebuilt the whole Colorado roster, and where it's not even necessarily the same team. It's just the name in which they carry, in which in terms means they have to carry that last year's and all the other the history, but it's not the same team. And it's, saying he started fresh, so he has a whole new squad that he has brought in there. And then, of course, when you take in consideration his son to be eligible for NFL draft next year, so where presumably in the next after this season or next season, he can lose his safety net that has been having the experience of having being with the same quarterback for the last 4 years. And then now we get to see like how Prime really coaches, to where he doesn't have the players in which he has been around. So of course there's more hurdles that's in front of him, but we will see in state how Coach Prime ends up negotiate that. And saying at this point he's doing what he got to do. Another game, another name to take, and we'll see how that comes out. So NFL, definitely a trend that's real. Just wonder how long it would be before he's NFL bound. I don't, you know what, CC? It's funny you say that, because I was just getting ready to going to NFL. Is Coach Prime, can Coach Prime potentially be NFL bound? Now, when you say NFL bound, are we talking Coach Prime as a head coach or Coach Prime as a coach? What are we talking when you say that? I assume head coach, because I haven't even seen what Coach Prime's niche is in his offense. Is he an offensive coach? Is he a defensive coach? What would be his niche? Could he be an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams? What is Coach Prime's niche? He basically went from being a mega star in his sports to being a analyst to being a head coach. And like there was no in between. He head coach in high school, then he was given the opportunity to head coach of the Washington Commanders coming soon. Why the Commanders? Why the Commanders, Cornelius? I wonder why the Commanders. That's interesting. Why the Commanders? I would wonder why the Commanders. I would think that there's other teams that's going to be in need of a head coach before the Commanders. I actually think the Commanders are going to do. They're 1-0. I think they're going to do better than most teams. But I don't think the Commanders would be the team if that would have a open next year. I think Coach Ron. Oh, you know what? You know what? I can see the Commanders. I can see. I see other things. So it's possible. It's very possible. But yeah, I would wonder if, who would, like you said, who would be willing to take Prime on. I think it's just some coaches are made to be college coaches, and maybe Dion is in that image to where he's best as a college coach. Not saying that he can't coach on a big stage in an aspect of being a professional, a head coach in the NFL. I just think his attributes and what he does and his ability to lead men is better based upon coaching in the collegiate era. No different than Nick Saban, probably Dabo Sweeney, Urban Meyer, and a couple of those other coaches who's just been best if they stayed in the college ranks. In which that brings up, yeah, I'm tracking. That's why I thought about it. Yeah, that's exactly why. So yeah, I don't think Magic would do that to him. I will hope Magic would do that to him. I don't know if Dion is NFL material in the aspect, not in reference to his X and O's capabilities, but more so in his ability to move those men. I think that's going to be. I think that's a little different. He's more of a. I think Dion is more of a. He's a leader definitely, but I think in the aspect of to be able to lead young men and that I still have where you can somewhat galvanize them to be around you and to kind of like chisel their mind to have to buy into a certain aspect of what it is he's doing. I think that's better set for the college ranks. Additionally, as it was just said, I didn't get a chance to fact check to see how true is this, but what is the possibility? What is thought of a possibility of Coach Nick Saban potentially walking away from college football and retiring at the end of this season? I was about to say, what could that do for college football if he did that? Who would be next up in that image of having being dominance? Because I think what has happened is the dominance of Alabama, I think, has kind of ran its course. I don't know if we can consider or should we be considering Alabama just that dominant foe in the college football arena. I think, of course, the mystique of Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide continues to live, but I think it's starting to become a shell of itself. You continue to see the tree being built. I assume that when Kirby Smart was able to dispatch and silence the and topple the world of his tree of the coaching tree from Nick Saban and losing to him, enacted itself and put itself in position and say, okay, we can do this and we can be consistent and do that. Now you're probably going to start seeing more and more of that. Now Steve Sarkisian has added his name to that list, as of course he almost did it last year. And now, of course, again, you got Lane Kiffin that's out there. So it's a plethora of coaches that are out there that's going to face off against them, in which now, of course, punch at Alabama in the mouth. If Coach Saban decides to retire, I'm very sure that is going to take some sting or some wind out of the sails of Alabama in their recruiting, because depending on who they could bring in, it's like, okay, Coach Saban isn't there no longer. What's the recruiting pitch to players if Coach Saban isn't there? So we might see a shift in the seismic shift in the arena of coaching. Of recruiting as it comes to Alabama, if it is stated that Coach Saban is truly really going to retire. So, of course, more to come with that. Like I said, going into the NFL, last night, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. Shout out to my man Eric Smalls, Viking super fan, I guess you can say, on First Formation. 0-2, brother. If you out there listening to Eric, 0-2, man. It's unfortunate. But in case, last night, he and Belichick should go fishing. Yeah, Belichick needs to peace out too. So last night in NFL Thursday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles faced off against the Minnesota Vikings, in which initially it's funny, right? When you look at it, the game in itself, the score, in my opinion, does not tell you what the game was like, or maybe it does. In which when you take in consideration the Eagles put up some numbers. The Eagles put up some numbers, some huge numbers, 100, over 200 yards rushing, 170 of those yards coming from their new running back in DeAndre Swift, who was sidelined last week with only 2 touches, one being a carry, one being a pass in their win over New England. Of course, Kenneth Gainwell was out this week and couldn't go due to bruised ribs. So they went ahead and unleashed Swift, in which he came out 170 yards plus to go with a touchdown to go along with it. Jalen Hurts, actually, let me make sure I'm getting this all correct and not just going off of memory. Sorry. So, of course, like I said, now 0-2 Minnesota Vikings took on the now 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles. Kirk Cousins, 31 for 44 for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. Gave up 2 sacks for 18 yards. Alexander Madison, 8 carries for 28 yards. Ty Chandler had 1 carry on the night. Justin Jefferson, 11 receptions for 159 yards. Jordan Addison, 3 receptions, 72 yards, and 1 touchdown. TJ Hockenson, 7 receptions, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns. KJ Osborne with 3 for 34 and 1 touchdown. Josh Oliver, 2 for 13. Might add you, Justin Jefferson was 11 for 11 receptions, 159 yards on 13 targets, 2 drops, in which 1 drop basically cost him as he fumbled the ball across the goal line out the back of the end zone, which gave a touchback to Philadelphia, took away a reception and a potential touchdown, in which that could have made the difference. And of course, he admonished that it was his bag, it was his fault, taking responsibility. Jalen Hurts, as well as 4 turnovers, of course. All fumbles lost. 4 fumbles lost. Jalen Hurts, 18 for 23, 193 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks for 22 yards lost. DeAndre Swift, as mentioned before, 28 carries, 175 yards, 6 touchdowns. Boston Scott was 5 for 40 on the night. Not bad, actually. Excuse me. Jalen Hurts, 12 for 35 and 2 touchdowns. And, of course, Rashad Penny was 3 for 9 on the night. Devontae Smith, 4 receptions for 131 yards and 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown was 4 for 29. Dallas Goedert got into the game, 6 receptions for 22 yards. DeAndre Swift contributed himself with 3 receptions, 6 yards, and last but not least, Rashard Penny, 1 reception, 5 yards, a total of 193 yards, as stated before. But it was all about the carries, with 48 carries for 259 yards from scrimmage. So, with that being said, do you think, and I wish our beloved Bishop was on right now, do you think that the Philadelphia Eagles are unequivocally a different team from last year? Or are they just getting started? That's 2 games on the season in which seemed like it should have been a dub, in which the teams late, late in the day, in the game, made it a game. Even though they lost 28-34, 4 touchdowns on 364 yards, 48 yards is not shabby in any way, form, or fashion. Kirk Cousins showed that his team would be able to compete. Justin Jefferson with 159 yards receiving, showed that they was there. Not to mention, like I said, the fumble on the goal line or in the red zone, 3 yards from the goal line. This could have easily have been a W for the Minnesota Vikings. But in the same breath, when you look at it, it was a dominance by the Philadelphia Eagles and it shows signs that they can push the ball, they can carry the rock. They might have found a back in DeAndre Swift, or potentially, and then it becomes another question that comes up: do they utilize Jalen Hurts too much in the run game, or do they give Jalen Hurts the option to decide, hey, you have the ability to go ahead and run, pass, or anything like that? In this conversation, there wasn't much you heard in reference to AJ Brown. Was it just a situation of it just wasn't his night? Did the Minnesota Vikings have his number so they were where he wasn't? He wasn't the focal point, or is this more to come? Are we seeing a surgence in Devontae Smith, to where now Devontae Smith is going to be the face of that offense? And we want to take the light off AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. So I think from that's what happens for the question. Those are the questions that I have, and I'm coming across from last night's game. Like, is this a changing of the guard? Are we going to see something different? I'm still teetering on the fence of reference to are the Philadelphia Eagles as dominant as they were last year? Now that I look at it after the performance last night, the Eagles basically looked at the San Francisco 49ers and basically is like, you have 48 hours to respond. Correction. 72 hours to respond. 49ers have 72 hours to respond in reference to the claim to the most dominant team currently. I think San Francisco sits at number 1 in the NFL rankings as a top team in the season so far. Now they have to respond back, and so it was an ugly win, Cornelius. And you know what? So what I think is scary in this case, what I think is scary, Cornelius, is that we kind of don't know who Philadelphia is at this point. And I think that's what the scary thing. I think that's what you said. Eagles win ugly, and that's scary. Yeah. So it's like we don't know who Philly is at this point. We're not sure, like, you know what I'm saying. And then to simply say, like you said, doing it with both an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, is he just taking what was last year's and they're just recycling it. Like, what exactly is it going on? One thing I can say, and which we're basically able to see, is that on the goal line or within 2 yards, they're virtually almost unstoppable. And I don't see why every team just doesn't enact the same thing which Philadelphia does in that instance. All you need is a good line that's able to push forward and create the hole, or enough of a hole for your quarterback to slither into to get those yards to where it's almost impossible to stop. So now that saying, now that's out there and want to see like anything within 1 to 2 yards, the Philadelphia Eagles have shown this is what you do. They gave the blueprint to it. How many teams are willing to take on that, in which is coming, in which last year it was only one time in which he was stopped on that within 1 to 2 yards. And of course, it's fourth. So 4th and 1, it's a no-brainer at this point. And this interestingly too, I'm very sure, excuse me. I'm very sure that that he wants to of course, no one wants to be in a 4-down situation continuously, but now they have the blueprint to what it has to say, hey, 4th and 1, it's no problem. On the goal line, on the 20-yard line, the 54-yard line, the 48-yard line of our opponent, 4th and 1 is no problem. So it's interesting to see, will that continue to be something in which they use? Will we see a situation to where there's nothing to be worried about when it comes down to making these plays and pushing the pile, or making these touchdowns? Because like you said, 2 touchdowns for Jalen Hurts, but only 35 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. 2 of those touchdowns, both touchdowns came on the goal line. Who is Philadelphia at this point? And will we find out unequivocally who they are by the time they get into the harder games? Like, not saying that Minnesota wasn't. Hell, at this point, I don't even can't say that that New England wasn't, because both games were close. Both games they had a quick lead, jumped out there, and both games it was made a game later in the as it went on. Of course, we could take into consideration the Eagles are missing some key players and was a little short in some instances, especially that in the because KJ Orbison being wide open in the back of the end zone late in the game definitely wasn't. I'm very sure it wasn't part of the plan. But of course, having a new player in due to the loss of Bradbury, of course you had next man up. So of course you have that. Other games that are on the slate that I'll go ahead and make my predictions for this upcoming week. Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons, in which my selection for that game will be, it's hard because I think I'm not sure if Aaron Jones is going to be available, if he's going to be if we seen the real Jordan Love, or if that was just a glimpse of what he could be. Same thing with the Falcons, as they were able to take care of business in week 1. But I think I'm going with Atlanta in that game. Buffalo, the Bills, and the Raiders, again, another game in which I'm very sure that the Josh Allen that we seen Monday night is not the Josh Allen that we will be seeing on Sunday. Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think they sketched the surface in any case on what they could potentially be or what they're going to show. But I will go with Las Vegas in that case until Josh Allen can show me that they are ready to play. Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm very sure Joey Burr has dusted off that rust which he had in the first game. As we stated, we talked about sometimes the seasons take effect in which it maybe wasn't in his best interest for that game. Baltimore coming off a win, but it was a shaky win. It's a hard one, but I think I want to go with the Ravens versus the Bengals. Seahawks and Lions. I think the Lions showed us a new version of them. Seahawks, not saying that they regress, but here you go with the Tom Foley. Excuse me, Steven. As I was just saying, Steve, as I was saying, y'all got the win, but we don't know who you guys really are. In which it seems like anyone could basically walk up on y'all and handle business, and it's just a matter of time before someone does. So I think yes, y'all got the. I'll give y'all got the win, but I think it's just one of those situations where the Eagles are. We don't know who they are, and I guess it remains to see what team y'all still got games coming up in which y'all going to have to play top tier talent, in which we'll see how well you do. But for right now, y'all handling the business. So yes, sir. Good morning. Glad to have your formation with us this morning. True. You know what? You're right, Cornelius. And then they just Houston let go La'el Collins. So there's we'll see. Defensive coordinator is a little shaky. Well, I guess you got to give him some opportunity to get instrumented with this program. Seahawks and Lions, like I said, checking the lines. Los Angeles Chargers and the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert and company to have a good game. Chicago Bears and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, a week ago, I would have, without a doubt, probably went with Chicago. But after what I see what's going on with Justin Fields, the lack of Claypool is just not. He's just not doing what he's supposed to do. What he's brought there to done. Kind of regressing from what he was starting to develop in Pittsburgh. Actually, a little further before that, because obviously that's why they sent him on. I think that the Buck, and then of course I'll be the first to admit that I looked at Baker Mayfield as not going to be any good in Tampa Bay. But one thing you have to take into consideration: Baker Mayfield has a lot of grit and grind and resiliency built into him. That's his DNA, and he's going to fight it out as best he can, which he did. It got them a victory. And Justin Fields, the company, just didn't look good. So I think Chicago is taking the L versus the Buccaneers. He should have had them, short yards downs. It's going to be a learning experience, Steve. So, like I said, Philly, we don't at this point. I look at it as you don't know who Philadelphia is, and but they're probably going to have to figure it out soon before they start gunning into these buzzsaws that's coming on them, or before they get caught slipping by a team that's up and coming. Them Lions. The line is not hype, bruh. It's not hype. I think the Lions are who we say they are. And right now, I say the Lions are a real deal. I think they go 2-0 with a victory over Seattle. That's my prediction. I think I got the Lions over the Seahawks. Chiefs and the Jaguars. So this was a hard one for me when I took a look at it. What we have is an up and coming team that's sort of like an orthodox defend in Jacksonville. And unless what's good, drunk? What's cracking with you, bruh? Duffy said the Lions was industry playing. I think they legit. Industry really drunk. You need to talk to you need to talk to Cornelius. I think the Lions is a real deal as well. Been watching the Lions for like the last 3 seasons. This has been the 3rd season since I've really been paying close attention to the Lions, and they've had an ascension period. Like they went from being waxed to being in every game in which they lost to putting themselves in position last year to be into the playoffs. Now, of course, in the era of ascension, now they're in position to put themselves to make that next move, maybe get in the playoff. They've already taken care of business against Patrick Mahomes, although he was without Travis Kelce, and had a bunch of receivers that basically had a dismal game in receiving. And now they're going against the Seahawks. Probably same stuff. They have to deal with a physical DK Metcalf. Njaba is out. Lockett wasn't having the best of games. It seems like he's starting to regress a little bit. And so now we put that in consideration. I think it's a recipe for Detroit to get a victory. And as well, I was just about to say, and then on the opposite side of that, although, like I said, the Chiefs lost to the Lions on Thursday night last week. Now I think it was definitely in position. It puts it in position for the Jaguars to be able to be victorious. I'm going with the Jags too over the Chiefs. Jones, Jones is back in the building technically. Jones did sign up, I think a 1-year deal, so he's going to be back. So you have that going on. I just think, and then of course the Kelce situation. But I think the Jags, I think that's there's more than enough for there's more than enough. The Jags have more than enough to be victorious over the Chiefs, in which I see the Chiefs potentially probably going 0-2 for the to start the season. It's a possibility. I'm on you. I'm on it with that drunk. Texans and the Colts. I think this is a battle of the who is going to be better, or who just the better of the worst out there. I think the Texans still have more to learn and more to develop. And I think Anthony Richardson with the Colts might be a little more developed. Of course, clearly and concisely, without Jonathan Taylor being in the mix. Without Jonathan Taylor being in the mix with the Colts, the Texans have the better in the running back, I think, and Dameon Pierce. So I think the Colts might edge out the Texans in this. Yes, he is. He should be back. I'm sorry. The Colts. Yeah, I got the Colts too. Anthony Richardson was doing this thing, but I don't know. I mean, he's probably better. He in this pro style offense, he's probably looking better than CJ Stroud. It's probably going to take a little to get CJ Stroud going. Of course, and then the Colts have better receiving core than the Texans as well. So that's another reason for it. But yes, Chris Jones is back. He signed I think a 1-year deal, so he should be back in it. So as long as they can keep Jones out the backfield from being a huge pressure to Trevor Lawrence, then they should be good. Of course, like I said, Calvin Ridley, you got to consider Christian Kirk didn't go off. And he was their darling last year. You got Zay Jones. It's a couple. They got a couple of good things going on. ETN, Ingram. So I think they're pretty decent in all aspects of their offense. So that's why another reason, like I said, catching Kansas City coming off, they still got to kind of get Rev back up as they get some key pieces back. Who else? Oh, the Giants and the Cardinals. Again, I'm very sure we didn't see the real Daniel Jones this past week as the Dallas Cowboys dismantled them. And then in all actuality, the Cardinals, even though they were formidable on Sunday, I don't think I think Daniel Jones comes back. So I'm going with the Giants in that game. The Cowboys and the Jets. This was coined to being ready to be a battle. Which it's not to say it can't be still in state. It's just that it's going to look completely different with Zach Taylor instead of Aaron Rodgers, in which in-state is Cowboys is probably going to get this without a doubt. Giants, no way the ball allows to get blown out. So yeah, he might not allow to get blown out. It's not to say they can't win, but I don't foresee the Cardinals getting the W in this game. I just see the Cardinals is probably going to have another lackluster season. Maybe going 4-13 on the year or something like that, and then kind of like waiting for the quarterback to come back. Really, Don? That's what you're gonna do? Appreciate it, bro. Thank you, sir. Thank you, bro. Welcome for happy formation too. That the Washington Commanders, Broncos. The Commanders, I think, is tapped in. I'm not going to completely say. I think they make the playoffs this year. I think they're going to be a little disruptor in the NFC East this year between, of course, the Eagles and the Cowboys. I think they take care of business versus the Broncos. I think Sean McVay has some. I ain't gonna say soul searching, but yes, sir. Appreciate it, Drunk. Thank you, sir. I think the Sean McVay and company have some searching to do within themselves, and kind of like get past the fact of we know that you got hired back on because of what you did in New Orleans and the ideal of your abilities. The same thing with Russell Wilson, which we thought it was going to make it work. They're going to get back, of course, having some of their people back, as I think Jerry Jeudy comes back this week, giving them another receiving option. But I just think they have to do some searching and realize things have changed a little bit since the last time he was in the league, and since Russell Wilson was that dude. It's not too far removed from him to get back into some aspect of that, and they just need to be able to mesh that together. So I think it's going to take a little longer for them to kind of like find that zen area. But if they do, I mean, when they do, this should be starts to turn into wins. But I think at this juncture, I think Washington. I think that this match of Washington will be victorious. My fault. Sean Payton. I said McVay. Sean Payton. Yeah, appreciate it, Drunk. But yes, it's make obviously, and then of course, is that a game coming up? Did I miss something? Oh, I see why I didn't say because they was so again. My apologies, of course. My Sean Payton, not McVay. McVay is the coach for the Los Angeles Rams, in which they play with 49ers. I mean, there's nothing for me to really say about that, except for, of course, I'm going with San Francisco in that case. And Stafford looked all right. He didn't look too bad, but without Cooper Kupp, although Pat Pakuka showed that he might be a problem to where if they get cut back, he rotates over to that old Robert Woods format, Van Jefferson. I don't know what his issue is or what case like that, but of course we should see at some point how that all plays out. I had to go check that out, Drunk. I ain't see that. I have to go take a look at that. Dolphins and Patriots was Tua. No, you know what? What I understand is Tua, and we've heard plenty of times before the accuracy of Tua's ability to get the ball downfield. We saw a clinic be putting on 200 yards receiving from Tyreek Hill this past weekend. Is that what the Miami Dolphins is? And we didn't even really see, and I don't even think we really seen all of it or a full display. Is that what the Miami Dolphins is? If so, then the NFL has some is going to be chalk for the action this year. The Patriots, as I was looking at what Cornelius was talking about earlier, it might be time for Belichick to go ahead and take a seat somewhere and give up. We're starting to see where it's clearly Tom Brady was the engine that could for the New England offense, and it might not have really been that of Bill Belichick. Cornelius said he takes the patch for an upset. I'm going with the Dolphins as well with Drunk. I think we're going to see. I think all the talk about Tua not being that dude or not having the ability to be that dude, as we know he's getting ready to come up on a potential contract extension. I don't know if he's going to be another quarterback that resets the market, but he should get top dollar. Maybe not resetting the market top dollar, but he should get top dollar, which he'd be the first in a while in which a player had got a new deal but didn't reset the market. Well, first in the last couple of people. Of course, Bill trying to Popovich and he getting in the field Wimby. I don't think that's going to be the case. Tyreek says he's not going for the all-time season records in yards. Yeah, he's going. Tyreek said he wants 2,000 yards receiving. At this point, he's already 10% of the way there with the last game over 200 yards receiving his last game. So maybe potentially he does get that. I don't know. At some point, taking consideration a potential for injuries, the possibility of defenses is going to start rolling and figuring it out. So at the point in which they start to try to omit a onslaught of yardage by Tyreek Hill, they're going to have to start giving up other things in which taking consideration then Jalen Waddle and the rest of the Miami offense. So definitely some things to talk about and see. It's an argument to be made. Tyreek Hill is better without Mahomes. So you know what, Truck? I won't even say that Tyree is necessarily better without Mahomes. I think the thing to take a look at is it's not Tyreek without Mahomes. It's the quarterback in which Tyreek has now and what he's doing for doing. So it could be the conversation which Tyreek initially encroached on is Tua might be better than Mahomes for him. You know what I'm saying? In state. Like it might just be that situation that puts them in. So that it might go back to that where when he was giving all the praises to Tua as his new quarterback, maybe that's exactly it. But they need to take in consideration like Kansas City and Mahomes had when Tyreek was there, they had other options to where Tyreek wasn't he wasn't the ideal, he wasn't the key option. Of course, he had just got Pacheco. At that time, he had Kareem Hunt, Atlas Hilaire. So it's like they had other things that was there that was in place to where it took away from Tyreek. Tyreek was just an addition to the fact. Now in Miami, it's Tua, it's Tyreek, and then you got Waddle. Gesicki is gone, so they have a new lot there. And then Mossert, and so it's the tier is different, and I think that was the difference. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, so that makes a difference, and now I think we're starting to see it. Like, you know what I'm saying, maybe that is the case, and maybe that is what put in him. And we saw a glimpse of it last year. Tua got injured, it kind of fell off, but yet here we are, right back where they started at. So maybe he's on to something, but I mean, it remains to be seen. In which we'll get a chance. It should start to form a bit over the course of the next couple of weeks. But of course, next up is Patriots. I don't know if the Patriots have enough to even put up or stop or pose an issue to Miami in that air attack. So we might just see a replica or something similar to what we saw last week. And then we just see where he continues to add on to his total and what he said his goal of reaching 2,000 receiving yards, which in access that's going to be immense. Mac Jones. Was Mac Jones drafted to be the next? Was Mac Jones drafted to be the next Tom Brady? I would believe so. Of course, we see that's not the case. To where almost Billy Zapp almost challenged him and was challenged him to take that position. But I think when you look at it, Mac Jones might have been a good pick amongst those quarterbacks that year because let's say Mac Jones came out in the Justin Fields era, the Trey Lance draft class. he might be one of a better option. Might have been the better of the quarterbacks in this case, even though he wasn't drafted in that way. So I think he just has more. It got to continue to build Zach Taylor. So of course, when you look at that, what Mac Jones was the better of those quarterbacks, even though he was drafted late in the year. I mean, late in the draft. Cornelius says the Patriots are going to hit them, and all we know that's a deterrent to speed. I don't see it. So, Cornelius, are you saying that Miami is losing to? Did you say that? I think you did. You said you taking. Yeah, you say you taking the Pats. It's not an upset. I think Dolphins get this, and it's not going. You can't hit. You can't hit what you can't see or catch. It got to be in front of you. Did you hear that Colts and the Jets are going to reach out to Andrew Luck? It doesn't make a difference, Donovan. I think there's nothing that can bring back Andrew Luck. I think he's gone. And then at this point, I don't even think that's no different from even. That's why I think even mentioned the fact about saying gotta love him dearly, Colin Kaepernick, and the fact that his people reached out in reference to the Jets. At this point, guys like Colin Kaepernick and Andrew Luck are gone. Like I think people will reach out to Tom Brady before them, being that he had the most recent time, even though outside the fact of he's considered the GOAT, and he's really of age. He's aged and very vintage. And so it's like, why? It's like to reach out to these guys. I don't even sit up and put any more premises to even sit up and talking about that, engaging it. Now, when we see them in at tryouts and stuff like that and doing anything, now that's when you start to sit up and get my. That's when it's on my radar. But at this point, it's just gimmicky in a sense, and just a content creation or just a reason to try and bring it in. So it's not going. I'm not going to even really give it too much legs. Now, when you start to take a look at other people like Carson Wentz as a name that comes up that's out there, I would say possibly Phillip Rivers. But of course, Phillip Rivers was just there, and he decided to vacate and go about his business and go do something else. So there's other people that are out there in which you can sit up and put a premise, say is Cam Newton, maybe, I don't know. Like there's other people in which it's not Josh Rosen, even though they probably wouldn't. I would even give Pat Fitzpatrick before saying some of these other guys. Putting 100 on Zach Wilson leading Jets to CK. That's you can't be serious. Zach isn't. You know what? Zach might have. He might happen. He was drafted high. In which, saying, I'm not trying to sit up and put anything bad on those players, the Lances, the Fields, the Taylors, or anything like that. There's probably going to be a point to where they're going to basically be able to show that, okay, we was drafted. I want to show my value at the position in which I was drafted in. It just might not be for the team in which they currently play on. Even for for Trey Lance, and he's currently went from San Francisco to Dallas. But that might not be. Maybe that's not his last stop, or maybe that's not where he really gets to show his abilities. He might have to end up going somewhere else to get an opportunity to play. So it remains to be seen. Yeah, in state is I don't know. I don't think Zach's going to beat the Cowboys. So it just all happened that Zach Taylor ran up against the wrong team after him taking over. And then, of course, for Mac Jones, I just think he's going up against the wrong team this week after he missed the opportunity to take care of Jalen Hurts and company. I'd rather run another with Jack Wilson, knowing that this last short that brings in somebody. Zach going to enter Mark Sanchez. Y'all gonna get off of my man Mark. Jack confidence is way higher, and you can see it. He's very confident. He's more, and I think it helps that maybe having Aaron Rodgers in his locker in the quarterback room has been beneficial to him, and now he gets the opportunity to take over, and he has another opportunity to show that, okay, y'all drafted me high. I was supposed to be the franchise. this is my opportunity to show I am the franchise. I can be the franchise after just a couple of weeks, just a spring training behind Aaron and having the ability, then having Aaron there to kind of like help him out and give him calls and pointers and stuff like that. It might be beneficial. It might help him overall in state to where now it puts him in a position to be a better quarterback than what he was, to where it gives the Jets that the reassurance that, okay, we did draft him where we needed to. He was the best pick, and it just took a little, he just needed a little push. Cornelius, with the Jets weren't going to the AFC Championship game with Rodgers, so Zach ain't going to do that. I agree. I think they was going to be competitive. You know what I'm saying? Now I think the question is out that can they be competitive with Zach there again? Although he seems like a different player, we're going to see that, especially when the Cowboys get after him. If we start to see some of the similar things in which we've seen what happened with Daniels this past week on Monday, although again different downpour just made it harder. But if we don't if we start to see the same trajectory, then I mean we're going to have to take a look at Zach and wonder, and I'm very sure his team's going to take a look at him too and wonder, hey, what's really going on? He says, I know Breece Hall is a monster. Breece is definitely that man. And now that he have Dalvin Cook in there, they might have, of course, the running back committee, but they might have a two-headed monster, which is going to be hard to do, which affords a different nuance for Zach, of course. And then all he has to do is West Coast offense, quick, get the ball out. You know what I'm saying? Garrett, he still has Garrett to have the ability to find Garrett. Gibson and Brownlee, so they have a few weapons. They got some stuff to work with, definitely. So it shouldn't be that much of a problem for them in New York. It's just a matter of the fact of, again, Zach is at the helm, and he was just at the helm, and he didn't look too good. But of course, if you're as you work on your craft and you come better over time, then Zach might start to play out, and all the talent around him for the most part is young, so they all can grow together. Minus the Allen Lazard, which is a wily veteran now, and the rest of the players in which came over with Aaron Rodgers. So it remains to be seen. And then of course their defense, like we said, defense wins ball games. The Jets defense isn't anything to sneeze after. They get after it. Defensive line is a huge point for them. It doesn't hurt to have the up and coming rookie, last year's Defensive Player of the Year in Sauce Gardner. And then when you think about it, they had the team and overall from a youth standpoint was evaluated very, very well. Where you had the rookie and the defensive and offensive rookies of the years on the squad from last year. Not to mention that they had Breece Hall, who was on case to be the offensive player of the game until he went out, and then Garrett became that. So it's a complete different look. And when you open it up and start to slice it and dice it, whoever does their evaluation and does their scouting is definitely on their job. And it remains to be seen. Sort of Gibson, bringing him in as an undrafted undrafted rookie, and he's made the team. Of course, he closed the game last week, so it's still a lot to be said. In which I'm not doubting that the Jets have some stuff. It's just a matter of them putting it together. What's good, Commissioner Myers? I'm very sure you're even in Oklahoma City, or you're on your way there, of course. And I'm saying, real quick shout out to the Military Basketball Association, as they will be having their coaches summit and in MBA, Military Basketball Association, All-Star game this weekend in Oklahoma City at Oklahoma University. So if you're in the area, be sure to tap in, holler at them, stop by, check the game out, see what's going on, and see some of the bright stars in military basketball that's out there, as all those teams get set up and ready to go again, ready to lock in. Of course, additionally, if I know right now what's going on is tomorrow morning, if you're in the San Antonio area and are a part of want to be a part of the basketball community by being a player, Fort Sam Houston is having the last of their 3-day tryouts tomorrow morning. So be sure to pull up, see what they got going on, tap in, maybe make your way onto a team and etch your name into what is already a very productive and large history of military basketball players. Of course, you figure, you're already up, so definitely. So again, tap in, check it out. They got celebrity coaches and everything, so be sure to tap in there. Last 2 games, of course, both on Monday night. The Saints and the Panthers are due to do battle. Of course, like I said, I'm going to continue to push with the Saints. I really didn't see, in my opinion, you can see too much from the Panthers and Bryce Young. And I don't think you're going to see it against the Saints defense yet. Again, I just think the wrong places, wrong times for these teams and these rookie quarterbacks. I think the best chance, of course, is the Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud matchup. But I think at this point, definitely the Saints are going to handle business versus the Panthers. And that's even lacking. Assuming they get Alvin Kamara back in a couple of games, in which they start to get re-strengthen their squad and basically be able to push through. And last but not least, the Pittsburgh Steelers would be going against the Cleveland Browns, in which the Browns I would give the edge to, especially with the Pittsburgh Steelers already starting to miss out on some players. I don't know, was it the 49ers effect, or was it or is it just a simple fact that we're going to start to see a regression in Najee Harris and probably a push forward from their backup in Jalen? The Browns, I don't know if the Browns really, really look good, or the Browns basically just were Johnny on the spot in facing the Cincinnati Bengals when just Joe Burrow was just coming back from his injury and his hiatus, a rain-induced game or any of that. So a lot of that comes into play. But I think this could potentially be the season in which we might see a losing record for the Pittsburgh Steelers, as they're on a 15-year stretch to where they haven't lost at all. Donovan, I know you're a Steelers fan, and you saying we are done after game 1. Well, game 1 was against San Francisco. I mean, that's a little bit different. The Browns are no 49ers. So, I mean, you still have a possibility in getting it done. You said Najee was never that good to me. Sean Watson is very questionable. He had a lot of minutes, missed throws. I think it's some of the people just getting kind of like reinstituted. So, but of course, he's getting it back in the game action. Could be making a difference, especially for Deshaun Watson after being that brief hiatus. He came back last year with a couple of games left to play. I think 6 games left to play. Now he's back and he's at the helm all together. So it could make a difference for him. Like I said, again, and take into consideration, it wasn't the best. It was the rain and stuff like that played a part for both teams, I'm sure. So we start to see, but I think we start to see a difference made. I think Tomlin has garnered enough to get some time. I don't think Tomlin is on the hot seat yet. I think we're talking a year or two, of losing before Tomlin is on that hot seat. So I think they still got. I think he still has some time to kind of like turn it around. I think Tomlin have the ability to say that. I think Tomlin have the ability to say that he's done before they tell him he's done in state. George, you don't like Pickett? Well, I don't know. Taking consideration if y'all end up if the Pittsburgh Steelers end up falling falling, then it could be a situation to where maybe someone like Caleb Williams decide maybe I will come out in this draft if he has an opportunity to potentially get picked up by the likes of Pittsburgh as opposed to Arizona or something like that. But yeah, I think Tomlin's secure. I don't think he's going nowhere. And of course, like I said at the top, the 49ers and Rams face off. Of course, San Francisco. I think starting to get back in there. Now we're starting to see the high side of Brandon Ayuk being a dominant force or being the perfect complement to Deebo Samuels to where where it's almost like maybe Deebo is a complement to Brandon. We don't know. Additionally, you take a look at Christian McCaffrey is always huge. You still have the skills and the availability of currently of George Kittle. Brock Purdy came looking so comfortable, like he's been doing this for a while. So definitely San Francisco is looking good on offense. And then from a defensive standpoint, with Tafanga and with Tafanga and Bosa and Warner and company all there with the possibility. You never know what there's more to be picked up on. San Francisco looking good. Number one in the rankings, of course. A chance to rebuttal what Philadelphia did this weekend in Minnesota. It's a good chance to go out and do this to Los Angeles and hold on to yet another week of being the number one. Heading for a crash course. I talked to Bishop over the weekend, in which, of course, he tried to say that what's good, Seven? What's cracking with you, man? I'm sorry I missed you the other day, bro. As I seen your message, I was like, oh yeah, let me jump on. I'm very sure it's going to be a nice and spicy topic, or BA's up with some shenanigans. I missed out, but I know this weekend we should be able to tap in. So without a doubt, I got a game to officiate tomorrow, so I think after that I should be good. But like I was saying, Don, he talked to Bishop this weekend, and so this is the rhetoric where he keeps on trying to put in my he keeps on trying to put these words in my mouth, saying that I stated and said that saying that Brock wasn't that dude. Now that's not what I said, but I was saying is that Trey Lance was going to get the opportunity, definitely without a doubt. There wasn't going to sit up and sell Trey Lance short due to the fact of they drafted them high and they don't want egg on their face when they basically after the fact. So when it comes into play, they end up having to change that, change the narrative, and they had to go with whom seemed to be the better player. In fact, John Lynch came out and stated as such and said that, saying they're going to try to get his best deal they can for him, or they'll like to keep him there because they drafted him and they put him there. They brought him in for a reason. It's just he hasn't had the opportunity, being injured probably every time he had an opportunity, being injured. So now when you look at it, he's gone. He's in Dallas now. Maybe he's going to put some pressure on Dak to be a better quarterback, or to not to study more, especially if you're not saying that Trey is that dude, but you never know what he could be potentially in that aspect under the tutelage of certain coaches and stuff, and being around a certain type of players. It could be different. Now, Brock Purdy got the ham, and he looked good. He looked hella good. But in-state is taking consideration. Brock was at Iowa State as a starter in a Power 5 conference college for, 3 or 4 years? 3 years, I think, 2 or 3 years. As Trey Lance was at a Division III school in North Dakota State, which is a powerhouse when it comes down to Division III. But he played sparingly because he only played the 1 year. And after that 1 year, COVID season hit, and then he didn't even play any part of the COVID season. And then he was drafted the next year. So, I mean, his development and the film on everything he does was, I guess you could say at this potential point, a little dated, and that's basically where he puts it at. So, see QB, my boy Matt Carroll went into depression about getting traded to New England. He deserved better. He's gonna get his chance, man. It's just hard to see that as those points as depressive. All good, brother. We go. Yes, sir. We definitely gonna get it. So yeah. So it's definitely some stuff out there, some points out there. Looking at a lot of players out there, pickups and rotations, and sometimes it's just a matter of getting traded or getting switched to a team or somewhere where that's more beneficial for you. Maybe it wasn't the ability to be at there. You know, saying yes, he was picking third overall for San Francisco, but now maybe Dallas is an opportunity where he gets his opportunity at. All there, basically. I mean, he's third behind Cooper Rush and Dak. All it takes is for one or two of the players to go down, and he can potentially have an opportunity. Or he could maybe take a depletion of quarterbacks somewhere else and decide, hey, and start to ask questions to see what they're willing to give or give up or take in regard to him, and basically now be put in that same, and he's back in the same situation again. What lost him his job can give him his job right back, and potentially. We saw it happen with Alex Smith, unfortunately. That's how Colin Kaepernick got his shot in state. Maybe it can happen as well for hell, it happened to Dak at this point. He went down, Jimmy went down, Brock was able to get in, and the rest is history. Now Brock is a franchise quarterback, and he was picked last in the draft 2 years ago. So it works funny sometimes. So, of course, I will cut it short for this time. I greatly appreciate y'all rocking with me this morning. Greatly appreciate the birthday wishes. I hope you all have a gracious weekend. Be sure to catch these games because we'll be back to talking about them in a couple of days. Catch the WNBA action as they've already started their playoffs. Of course, with the Aces winning their first game, and I think the Connecticut Sun winning their first game. Tonight's action, Atlanta Dream against the I think it's Atlanta Dream versus the Dallas Wings, and additionally the second ranked New York Liberty facing the Washington Mystics. So you got that in WNBA action, college football, professional football, all the way up until Monday, and then right back to it again. Enjoy y'all weekend. Don't do anything out, which I wouldn't do. And see y'all possibly on Monday. Peace. I'm out of here.